It started as a quiet night, until one missing person led to the discovery of something far bigger. Imagine a quiet, small town in the American South, where everyone knows everyone, and secrets are buried deep. But one night in 1974, a desperate act of self-defense inside a county jail would ignite a firestorm that reached all the way to the nation's capital. This is the story of Joan Little, a young black woman who fought back against her attacker, and in doing so, exposed the ugly underbelly of racism, sexism, and corruption in America's justice system. Welcome to The Small Town Murder That Exposed a Nationwide Scandal. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on more true crime stories that changed history. Let's dive in. Our story begins in Washington, North Carolina, a sleepy town in Beaufort County with a population of just over 9,000 back in the 1970s. It's the kind of place where life moves slow. But beneath the surface, tensions simmered from the civil rights era. Racial divides were stark, and the justice system often reflected that bias. Joan Little, born in 1953, grew up here. She was a 20-year-old African-American woman from a working-class family, no stranger to hardship. Joan had a troubled past. Petty theft charges landed her in jail while awaiting appeal for breaking and entering, and larceny convictions. She was sentenced to 7 to 10 years but was fighting it. On the night of August 27, 1974, Joan was alone in her cell at the Beaufort County Jail. The jailer on duty was Clarence Alligood, a 62-year-old white man known around town. According to Joan's account, Alligood entered her cell around 3 a.m. carrying an ice pick, a tool he reportedly used to threaten inmates. What happened next was a nightmare. Alligood allegedly forced himself on her, attempting to rape her. In a fight for her life, Joan grabbed the ice pick and stabbed him 11 times. Alligood died in the cell, found later with his pants down around his ankles, the ice pick still in his hand. Panicked, Joan fled the jail, taking Alligood's keys and shoes. She hid out for a week, terrified of what would happen if caught. But she didn't run far. She turned herself in on September 3, 1974, with the help of her lawyer, insisting it was self-defense. The authorities, however, saw it differently. Joan was charged with first-degree murder, a capital offense in North Carolina at the time, which meant the death penalty if convicted. News of the killing spread like wildfire. In a small town like Washington, gossip flew. Some called Joan a murderer. Others whispered about Alligood's reputation. But as details emerged, the case exploded onto the national stage. Why? Because it wasn't just about one murder. It peeled back layers of systemic abuse in prisons, especially against women of color. The 1970s were a time of change. The civil rights movement was still fresh. Women's liberation was gaining ground, and people were questioning authority. Joan's case became a rallying cry. Activists argued that sexual assault in prisons was rampant, and black women were particularly vulnerable to a system stacked against them. Groups like the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the National Organization for Women, and even Angela Davis supported her. Protests popped up across the country, with chants of "Free Joan Little." Let's break down the trial. It started in July 1975 in Raleigh, after a change of venue due to local prejudice. Joan's defense team, led by Jerry Paul, painted a picture of a woman defending herself from rape. Key evidence: Alligood's body was found partially undressed, semen on his leg, no underwear. The ice pick had Joan's fingerprints, but the position suggested struggle. The prosecution tried to portray Joan as a criminal with a history, implying she lured Alligood. But witnesses testified to Alligood's pattern of harassing female inmates. One former prisoner said he often came into cells at night. The trial lasted 5 weeks with over 100 witnesses. The jury, diverse for the time, including black members, deliberated for just 78 minutes before acquitting Joan on August 15, 1975. Verdict was historic. Joan was the first woman in U.S. history acquitted of murder, using the defense of resisting sexual assault. But the real scandal? The case shone a light on widespread prison abuses. Reports surfaced of guards exploiting inmates nationwide with little oversight. In the South, racial dynamics amplified it. Black women were often seen as less credible in court. The nationwide scandal didn't stop at prisons. It highlighted how the justice system failed marginalized groups. Fundraising for Joan's defense raised over $350,000, showing public outrage. Media coverage from the New York Times to Ebony magazine kept the story alive, forcing conversations about rape as a weapon of control. Now let's go deeper into the background. Joan Little's life before the incident was marked by poverty and systemic barriers. Born in Washington, NC, she dropped out of school and got involved in minor crimes. Stealing to survive, some say. Her initial arrest was for breaking into trailers and stealing items like a TV and fur coat. Critics argued her sentence was harsh, reflecting racial bias in sentencing. To understand the scandal, we need to look at the prison system in the 1970s. Prisons were overcrowded, underfunded, and rife with corruption. Female inmates, especially in small county jails, had little protection. Guards had unchecked power, and assaults were common but rarely reported due to fear of retaliation. The Beaufort County Jail was no exception. It was an old building built in the early 1900s, with minimal security for women's sections. Former inmates later came forward with stories of harassment, painting a picture of a toxic environment. Clarence Alligood was a longtime employee, married with children, but rumors swirled about his behavior. The defense uncovered that he had a history of drinking on duty and inappropriate conduct. After the killing, the investigation was botched from the start. The crime scene was not properly secured, and evidence like the bedsheet was lost. This fueled accusations of a cover-up to protect the jail's reputation. Joan's escape added drama. She hid with friends and family, even crossing state lines briefly. When she surrendered, it was with the condition that she be protected from harm. The pre-trial period was tense. Bail was set at $115,000, astronomical for the time. Activists formed the Joan Little Defense Fund, raising money through concerts and donations from celebrities like James Baldwin and Rosa Parks. The trial itself was a spectacle. Moved to Raleigh to avoid local bias, it drew hundreds of spectators. The judge, Hamilton Hobgood, allowed cameras, making it one of the first televised trials. Defense strategy, emphasized self-defense. They brought in experts on rape trauma, arguing Joan acted in fear for her life. Physical evidence supported her. No signs of premeditation. Prosecution countered by attacking Joan's character, calling her a prostitute based on rumors. This backfired, highlighting sexism. The jury's quick acquittal shocked many. Cheers erupted in the courtroom and Joan walked free. But freedom was bittersweet. Joan faced threats and struggled with PTSD. She later got into more legal trouble, serving time for other charges. But her case inspired change. Legacy. The case led to reforms in prison policies, like better training for guards and separate facilities for women. It bridged civil rights and feminist movements, showing intersectionality before the term was common. Similar cases followed, like Cyntoia Brown in 2004, who was convicted but later pardoned, echoing Joan's story. Today, issues of prison rape persist, but Joan's case was a turning point. The small-town murder of Clarence Alligood wasn't just a tragedy. It was a catalyst that exposed a nationwide scandal of abuse and injustice. Joan Little's courage reminds us that one person's stand can spark massive change. If this story moved you, comment below. What other true crime cases deserve the spotlight? Share and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there.